Da, 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 da. Oh. Peace, blessing, love, and light. It's a girl divinely guided D. So here I am. When I tell you, I found out that apparently the NDAs are lifted and the Love Is Blind cast are exposing each other, and I was just what is it scrolling by, and I think his name. Let me go look at it. His name is Hot Tea Drop. So apparently, this YouTuber Hot Tea Drop had some tea, and things were not what they seemed. I did two videos. One was just like my overall take on the reunion and bits and pieces of what I thought about the season. And then I forgot about Jordan and Amber, so then I had to do a separate video. And I mentioned that they're my favorite couple, but apparently a lot of things that were going on in their relationship was not what we thought it was either. So Jordan is a man of many secrets. Bree, Ashley, and them are just something else. We'll figure it out. We'll go through this. So I'm going to put the video up and then do my reaction to it. So bear with me. Okay. So where are we? So let's do this.
We were wrong. Very, very wrong. Because in the days since that reunion, the cast has been making the podcast rounds and the things coming out of their mouths. I was not prepared. We're talking receipts, we're talking contradictions, we're talking revelations that make the reunion look like a press conference.
I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to try again. I couldn't hear. So let me see. It's just working. What in the technical difficulties is trying to happen right now? Okay. All right. Let's go.
Everybody was reading from a teleprompter. Jordan's.
Okay. So I'm going to start that over. Double take, rewind. All right.
So the Love Is Blind Season 10 reunion aired, and we all thought we got the full story. We thought we had closure. We thought we understood what went down. We were wrong. Very, very wrong. Because in the days since that reunion, the cast has been making the podcast rounds and the things coming out of their mouths. I was not prepared. We're talking receipts, we're talking contradictions, we're talking revelations that make the reunion look like a press conference, where everybody was reading from a teleprompter. Jordan's version of events, completely different universe from Amber's. Mike's wedding day, not even close to what we thought happened. And Devante, that man has been running a whole operation that would make a spy novelist jealous. But what I'm about to tell you later about what really went down at that wedding, Jordan keeps blaming Amber for, that is going to have you questioning everything. And the Bree situation? Save your shock for that, because what she revealed about the Devontae trip changes the entire dynamic of this cast. Oh, and what Amber recently found out about the Sophia timeline? I'm still sitting with that one. Now, before I get into all of this, quick favor. If you're already hooked, subscribe so you never miss a breakdown. Smash that like button because it pushes this video to more people who need to hear this, and tap the hype button because it's the fastest way to support the channel right now. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so let's start with the man who has been getting the most polarizing response this entire season. Jordan sat down with Dee on the What's the Reality podcast, and right out the gate, he is not mincing words. He walks in and says he feels relief. Relief, not sadness, not regret. Relief that the whole thing is finally over and out there. Now pay attention to this part because Jordan painted a very specific picture of what went wrong, and it is miles away from what Amber told us. But we'll get to her side in a minute because the contrast is going to have you pausing this video to collect your...
I'm already pausing because the fact that he said he was relieved, and this was my favorite couple, legit. I really thought that this guy could really, I don't know, be endgame. But you know what? I blame myself because this man clearly said, and this is why they think some of us are delusional. He said he wasn't sure about having a relationship with someone who had a child. And there were things that he said, and it seemed like the more that I think about it, and I hate that I have to admit this, he really betrayed himself in so many ways to be with Amber. But I just had to give that, because did anybody catch that? He was relieved. Relieved. When you think of relief, you think of, thank God. Poor Amber. Okay.
Jordan says he went into the experiment open to having kids. He admits that before meeting Amber, he wasn't sure he wanted to be with someone who already had a child. His rationale was that if he was going to raise a kid, he wanted it to be his own. But then he met Emma, Amber's daughter, and says their bond was undeniable. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that being around her made him realize being a girl dad could actually be something incredible. And for a moment, at least according to him, it felt right. So catch this. When asked about what happened after the wedding, Jordan says Amber's trust issues from past relationships started getting projected onto him, and it only got worse once the camera stopped rolling. He said there were cyclical behaviors happening, that the communication completely broke down and he stopped feeling like he could be himself around her. He called it
Meatloaf again? That's it. I'm switching families.
You can't just switch.
The Garcia just switched the internet to Verizon 5.
toxic multiple times. Now, at the reunion, Jordan brought up this incident at his best friend's wedding, where he claims Amber showed up and embarrassed him. But when Dee asked him about it on the podcast, Jordan actually pulled back. He said, and I respect this part at least, that he wasn't going to get into the details because Amber wasn't there to defend herself, and his goal wasn't to smear her. He did say that for him, that wedding incident was the moment he knew he could not move in with her yet. He called it a symptom of a bigger issue, and he says after that, more incidents kept happening. Things that mirrored communication patterns Amber had told him in the pods she'd moved on from. Eventually, he hit a wall. Now, here's the headline from this interview. Jordan says he's been in a new relationship since mid to late November.
Are you dating well in your process?
Yeah, we ended things in August of 2025. I started seeing somebody mid to late November, and that's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she shows up for me. Like,
Aw.
she's super sweet.
Her name is Sophia. They met at a party through mutual friends. She added him on Instagram. He slid into the DMs, and he says, she shows up for me. That's a pointed statement if I've ever heard one. But when you hear Amber's version of this timeline, when you hear what she discovered about when Jordan and Sophia actually started talking, that neat little narrative starts looking very, very different. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Jordan was blindsided by his feelings, or was there a calculated exit strategy happening here? Now we flip the...
That was a nice segue. So I mentioned that he said he was relieved. He started dating a woman named Sophia, Soph, November, after breaking up in August with Amber. So I was counting, I don't know if it was September, October, November. That was 3 months after. Not bad. Some people end up with someone in 2 weeks, but that's neither here nor there. I do think there was possibly an exit strategy only because he wanted to figure out a way to let her down easy. And I think that Amber made it easier for him to walk away because of her behavior. And I think, to be fair, both of them are toxic, because I don't like that she is seen as a man hater when this show is about finding love. Love is blind, right? Because you're not healed yet if you have the word like hate attached to you so strongly in that way. And Amber, as we see, is a lovable human being. And I don't think that she's impossible to love, but I do think that there were two people who have toxic ways in that they're not truly expressive, meaning Jordan should have been more honest with himself about what he wanted and what he didn't want to burden himself with. And as much as Emma is not a burden to her mother, to someone who is not emotionally attached, who doesn't have a reason to be connected to her, it's an additional responsibility. And for Jordan, it's voluntarily, because this is not his biological child. So, you know, I understand his perspective. When it came to Amber, she also understood that she's she's a hound dog, like she's a bulldog when it comes to her feelings, her daughter, the things that are near and dear to her. And I understand that, because I can be very passionate in, and I have been in the past, overprotective, which is why I can see that she means well, but it doesn't come out well. And some of the terms that we attach to ourselves, it's how people are gonna perceive us. So the way it seemed like it was like a sister girl moment with when Emma was like, she was the biggest man hater. I don't think there's anything to clap about, especially given a woman who people don't believe she is her age already. I believe she's, what is she, 34, 33? We're around the same age range. And yeah, no. And miss me with the black don't crack. We know that's true. But but at the same time, it's like you could tell life has really took a toll on her. But I do agree that, you know, she's a what is it, a nurse practitioner. She's not insane. I don't think she's a necessarily a drunk. I think that she let loose a little bit too much around certain people who probably didn't have her best interest. But then again, you never know. And by that, I mean that at the reunion, we found out that some of the other ladies were covering shady stuff that Amber wouldn't. And I'm talking about Bree, Priyanka, and Ashley. You know, Amber is genuine, but I think that, like I said, her and Jordan are both toxic in that they don't live honestly about the choices that they actually want. Like, for example, once they got married, I think that, you know, they should have given it a real go, because they both were, you know, honest that they overlooked certain things and they were willing to make things work, which is why I think they were one of my favorite couples, because it seems like they were a little bit more open, but then we're seeing that they were not. So whatever. Let me get back to the
Tire table over because Amber sat down not once but twice, first on the Vile Files with Brittany, and then solo with DC Film Girl, and she brought the receipts. Literal text message screenshots. This woman was not playing. So let's start with the wedding that Jordan has been using as his primary ammunition. The story Jordan told at the reunion was that Amber showed up to his best friend's wedding, was a drunken mess, missed the ceremony, embarrassed him in front of everyone, and that this was essentially what ended their marriage. Amber says that is a fabrication. And here's what she claims actually happened. First, she says her car went into something called limp mode on the way to the wedding. For those who don't know, that's when your vehicle won't go above like 35 miles per hour because something mechanical is malfunctioning. She says she was texting Jordan the entire time, stressed out, explaining the situation, trying to get there. She showed the text receipts to multiple people, and this is where the whole thing falls apart for Jordan's version. According to Amber's text, Jordan messaged her at around 5 p.m. saying he'd already had 8 beers. 8 before she even arrived. So when he's out here telling the world that Amber was the problem at this wedding, According to her evidence, he was already deep into his cups before she walked through the door.
He goes, I've already had 8 beers though. LOL, oops. And this is at like 5 p.m., which it's his best friend's wedding. Go ahead and get
Pop off,
drunk.
King. Yeah.
As a mom with small kids, a reliable dishwasher that actually makes life easier is a must for my family.
Didn't stop drinking. So no, I did not show up to this wedding trashed. I did miss a ceremony because my car was, in a bad situation. He was lit at this wedding. Like I was
Now, Amber admits she did get more intoxicated than she should have. She says someone handed her a Tito's and soda, which she never drinks because she almost always sticks to wine. And because she was exhausted from working until 10 p.m. every night that week, it hit her hard. By around 10 p.m., she fell asleep at the table. Now, sit with this next part for a second, because this is the detail that rewired my brain. Jordan, according to Amber, took her to her car, took her keys, locked her in the vehicle, and went back to the wedding to keep partying with his friends. She says she woke up hours later, alone, scared, in a parking lot, not knowing where her husband was. She Ubered home to Mount Vernon by herself. Because at the reunion, Jordan made it sound like Amber was this reckless person who ruined his best friend's special day. But if Amber's account is accurate, he left his wife, who he acknowledges was intoxicated, alone in a car in a parking lot. And then the next day, she says he flipped it entirely on her, made her apologize 900 times, and used that one night as his justification for the rest of the marriage falling apart. Comment your theories, because this is giving manipulation playbook. The rest of the relationship, Amber says she didn't touch liquor. They went to New Orleans together with his friends. No fights. They visited his family's lake house. No fights. Another wedding after that. No fights. She's like, where is this toxic narrative coming from? Because the only...
And that is a very good point. Where is this toxic narrative coming from? It almost, like, the more you listen, the more it sounds like Jordan was looking for a way out. And I'm so disappointed. I really wanted a batch of those cookies. He really thought those cookies was going to keep him as America's, what is it, male sweetheart? What is the male version of... Jordan, are you a liar?
only evidence he keeps pointing to is one night where, by his own admission in text messages, he was 8 beers deep before she even showed up. And the legal situation? Still a mess. Jordan found a lawyer in November, sent all his annulment paperwork in, and is waiting on Amber to submit her portion. His energy about it was very much, let's wrap this up. But Amber says the paperwork Jordan's lawyer sent over was asking for her bank account information, her retirement fund details, all of her assets. And she's like, hold on. She has a house. She has a retirement fund. She has a career as a primary care provider with 200 patients. She's not about to sign something she hasn't had thoroughly reviewed. No prenup was signed, by the way. Jordan has assured her he's not going after her assets, but Amber is rightfully being cautious, and good for her. Now here's the bombshell that makes all of this look tame. Amber also revealed something she says she just found out. She was told by a friend who knows Jordan's new girlfriend that they potentially started talking during the summer, while they were still married. She says she can't confirm it. She says she hopes it's not true. Tell me in the comments, who do you believe here? Because somebody's narrative is crumbling. And what Brie revealed about the Devontae concert trip, that's where this whole thing goes completely sideways. Now let's talk about the man who dropped a grenade at the reunion and then walked away like nothing happened. Devontae. At the reunion, we found out Devontae is expecting a child and claims to be engaged. But the backstory that's...
So before I get back to this Devontae thing, I mentioned earlier that I saw that what's his name? I don't want to say Hot Tea Drop had posted this, and I had glanced, but I didn't really notice the part about Jordan's lawyer requesting Amber's financial information. At this point, it's like, for what? That's technically I think that marriage should be able to just be an annulment, regardless of them consummating it prior to, if it's been a certain amount of time and there was no actual financial support. Because let's be honest, Amber has a good job, as does, I think Jordan just shoves it up. I don't know. He's in a transitional period of his life. I guess he's switching careers. Don't quote me on that. But if this is the case, and Jordan just wants it to be over, I would stall too, because what are you talking about? You don't as if I was Amber, I need to find my own legal counsel to be able to look thoroughly through this. So maybe that's also what is taking a little bit of time, because Amber's a mom and she don't got time for this stuff. I'm very disappointed that Jordan would, even pull this type of stunt, or think that or recommend that his lawyer does this, and even enable that, because he's paying for these services and he's paying for his lawyer to do his job, right? But at the same time, you can't say that you want this to be done, but then you want to be tied to this woman in that way. That's not cool. And any lawyers out there, divorce lawyers, whatever, people that have experience with this, can you please comment and let me know? I'm really open and I want to be educated on this, because I don't think that's okay, especially if he wasn't really invested. What do you need to know my financial information for? You didn't want to move to Mount Vernon. Keep it behind in the city and just stay over there. Why? Because it's expensive to be over there. So now you want like a handout. If you don't get out of Jordan, see, now you upset me. I don't want your cookie. And you're not America's sweetheart man anymore. I'm over it. Okay. Let's be serious. Ciao. Devontae.
Come out since, it reveals a man who is operating on a whole different level of deception. And what I'm about to lay out here is going to make you understand why every woman connected to this situation is furious. So first, let's address the concert trip that blew up at the reunion. Here's the timeline according to multiple sources now. Britney and Devontae were still, from Britney's perspective, in a relationship. Or at the very least, the breakup was never clearly communicated. Because, as Britney explains, Devontae has this pattern of never actually saying the words.
I'm sorry, but Devontae was not that deceitful. Brittany, I want to sympathize, girl. Let me skip this ad and mute myself.
That it's over, which is the emotional equivalent of leaving someone on red for their entire relationship. Just enough crumbs to keep them at the table. During this ambiguous period, Devontae tells Britney he's going on a work trip to Michigan. He goes to Texas instead, to a Rufus Du Sol concert with Ashley, Brie, and Priyanka, 3 women from the cast. Amber revealed this to Britney months after it happened. Britney had no idea, and when she confronted the situation, she says Ashley was the only one who had a full, honest conversation with her about what went down. Ashley told her nothing happened, it was awkward, and Devontae kept disappearing from the group. And this is the part that tells you everything. He specifically asked.
Quick pause. Am I the only one who didn't know who Rufus is? I don't know who Rufus is, but Rufus, you've caused a lot of issues in people's relationships, and you're in the mix of an entanglement. Rufus. But you know what? I would say I'm grateful because at least they introduced me to Rufus. They're from Sydney. Okay, it's a band. Hi, Rufus.
Asked them not to post pictures of him. He knew exactly what he was doing. Now here's Britney's theory, and I think it's worth hearing. She believes Devontae went on that trip because he had interest in someone from the cast who was more his type, someone he had dated in the pods for a while.
I have my theories on why I think he actually went out there.
What are your theories?
I think that he had interest in who was more his type. That's what I'll say on that. And wanted to maybe see if there could potentially be something there.
From your cast?
Correct.
And based on context clues from the interviews, it seems like that person may have been Ashley. Britney says she doesn't fault Ashley at all. She called her phenomenal, beautiful, stunning. Her issue is entirely with Devontae, and this detail makes the whole pattern even more concerning. Britney says Devontae disappeared 3 times during filming. 3 times. Someone told her he was potentially seeing someone else while they were on the show together, which would explain a lot about his behavior in Cabo, the lack of physical affection, the emotional distance, all of it. Now about this engagement and baby. Devontae revealed at the reunion that the woman he's with now is someone he's known since college. He described it as an old flame that never became anything, but then when they reconnected, it was like a heck yeah moment. He said they wished they could rewind the clock and go back 5 or 6 years. Brittany's response to the baby news was that it was more shocking because he's had at least 3 major relationships in less than a year. And as for the engagement, she's still suspicious about whether it's actually real or if it was something he blurted out in the moment to make the situation look better than it was. And Amber, being the ultimate hype woman, pointed out something critical. Devante tried to use the excuse that he stopped being attracted to Brittany because of her race, but then his next girlfriend getting treated the exact same way. Amber was like, it's not a them issue, it's a you issue. Let me know what you think. Because Devante's pattern is becoming clearer with every interview that drops. Now, remember that concert trip I've been building up to? Here's the other side. Bree sat down with Caitlin Bristow on Off the Vine, and this interview reframed a lot of what we thought we knew. First things first, Bree and Connor never broke up. Let me say that again for the people in the back. They never broke up. That conversation we saw before the wedding where they decided.
All right, before we get to Bree and Connor, Devante, I knew a Devante, and he actually looks like Devante. So I'm not gonna say your name, but if you happen to stumble across, same sign too, you definitely know who you are because I just said it. Well, the sign. So I think one thing about these, Chris Brown is also a Taurus. And something about a Taurus is they're very they're a guy's guy. So I'm not surprised that he's with Alex. And I'm talking about the male ones because I've had a few. They're a guy's guy, very giving, very family oriented. So sometimes those things can be very deceitful to someone who is just like you're trying to be a romantic partner to them or whatever, you're trying to get to know them. So you see good qualities in them. And you hope that they would translate and transfer into your own connection with that individual. But they really have a certain hierarchy for how they view things, meaning family will probably be priority. And a lot of them, not for nothing, from my experience, and also the ones that I see, i.e. the Chris Browns, they tend to have a lot of options. And also because they're not always so directly mean, you will string your own self along like Bree did and try to justify in your head what's going on when they're clearly letting you know by their actions they're not as invested. But because they're not telling you directly, I'm not invested in you, you think that you have a chance. And you don't have a chance. Because Bree, if he really wanted you, even though the current girl is probably still going through the same thing, he would have you probably would have gotten pregnant. It probably would have been you. But because you didn't feel that he was attracted to you enough, it didn't get that far. But I'm not surprised at all by Devante. And to conclude, how things ended with me and my Devante was I had to let him know that he needed to go and heal because there was always some woman. I remember one time he picked me up in a car and then I'm finding out that it belongs to a female friend. But do you think that female friend knew that he had brought another female friend? No. So it's just a lot of like weird entanglements that happen. So I would just say, I know a lot of times people are like, it's not about the signs or whatever. However, it's just good to also understand that certain people who came about during a certain time seem to have similarities. So I'm an air sign and I'm Libra. Okay. And I've said it before. You could do with that what you will. Okay. But yes, I'm not surprised by Devante at all. And a lot of the times, people like Devante would turn it back and put the accountability back. And I agree with him because Bree, you had no business trying to convince somebody who you knew did not really like you like that to like you. And her father, Lord have mercy, that man. I'm gonna leave that alone. Let's get back to Bree and Connor, another interesting couple.
Not to go through with the ceremony. That was not a breakup. She says the very next day they drove to Nashville together, had a romantic weekend, and she literally had to go back and watch videos on her phone to confirm that yes, they were happy. because the internet had gaslit her into thinking they had split. She said the decision not to get married was a mutual, deeply thoughtful choice. She had shingles on her back. She was feeling physically terrible. The dress situation was underwhelming, with only 2 options to choose from. And more importantly, she said she wasn't going to have her father walk her down the aisle only for her to say no. Out of respect for Connor and for herself, she felt like if she wasn't fully ready, she shouldn't put either of them through that on the biggest stage possible. Connor, by the way, has said he would have said yes. Bree knew this. She wasn't surprised because, as she puts it, Connor leads with his heart. I lead with my head. And that dynamic is exactly what makes them work. Now here's where Bree addressed the Devante concert trip directly. She says from her perspective, it was an innocent trip. She, Priyanka, and Ashley were going to see Rufus Du Sol, and as they were planning, they invited Devante because he was a friend. Connor was invited too, but doesn't do well on flights, so he sat it out. Bree says she was completely transparent with Connor about the trip and Devante coming along.
We invited Connor, Devo. Connor, he does not do
afraid
well
of
on
flying.
flights. Yeah.
Okay, we gotta
So
work on
he's
that.
like, we are leaps and bounds.
Okay, great.
We are doing it.
Okay.
So he's like, I'm going to sit out. Like, I'm exhausted from the show anyways. So Devo like comes on this trip with us. And it was like the most innocent type of trip.
I thought it was a girls' trip.
So I'm gonna stop this here and do a part 2.